So in the hustle and bustle of life, life, life be life and things happen to us. We get busy, we have a lot of responsibilities. It can be super easy to get disconnected from God. And the pressures from family, work responsibilities, personal struggles as well too can lead you to feel like you're disconnected and you're not close to God. But the good news is no matter where you find yourself, God always invites you to come closer by promising you and saying to you that there's always an invitation to draw nearer to God. Now, I want to read this verse from James chapter 4, verse 8, and it says, "Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you." It's that simple. I can be done right now. Draw near to God, and God will draw near to you. Sometimes we struggle in our faith, and sometimes we struggle with our things that we're dealing with in our life because we're not allowing God in that space. We're not allowing God to work. We're not allowing God to bless us. We're not allowing God to, take control of situations. So I think a good question to always ask yourself if you're struggling with something is, where is God at in this struggle? Where is God at? Like, are you allowing God in this? Are you inviting God into this? Sometimes we feel like we could do it ourselves, and we, you know, either consciously or subconsciously don't make God part of the plan. At all times, God should be the foundation of everything that you do. If you do believe in God, if you do believe that God is the creator of all things, you have to allow God to formulate those things for yourselves, the things you're struggling with. Now, again, like drawing near to God is a choice, essentially. It is a choice, and God does give us the ability to have the choice to draw near or not draw near. Right? In James 4, the verse 8, God gives us a clear, simple invitation. It's clear and simple. Draw near to God, and He will draw near to you. That's the good news. That's the good news, and that's the simplest thing ever. I don't know how again, I was like 30 minutes, 30 seconds is I can stop right now. Right? But if we seek him, God will respond. We don't need to have everything figured out. I think that's the issue many times. It's like we try to figure things out for ourselves. I'm guilty of it myself. Sometimes I get in these moments where I'm like, hey, I need to try to figure things out myself. And it's not on purpose. Like I always believe in, and I've always gotten better with this over the years. It's not intentional where it's like, hey, like I'm not allowing God in the space. It's not like that's not the first thought that you have. The first thought is not how do I invite God into the space. Usually the first thought is how do I solve this problem? How do I solve this issue? How do I go about creating a resolution? How do I create a solution? The first thought typically isn't like, how do I invite God into the space? What do I do to allow God to be in control? What do I have control of versus what I don't have control of? Do I have the discernment to understand the difference? Do I have the wisdom to understand the difference? Right. So we don't need to have everything figured out, um, or come perfectly. We don't need to have everything figured out, and we don't have to come in this perfect form where we have, when the problem comes to us, we can automatically solve it. That's not that's not how life works. That's not how we're supposed to operate, right? God really just wants us to open our hearts and be willing to connect, right? Again, you drawing that connection with God is allowing God into that space, is allowing God to be an invitation, for any issues or things that we're dealing with. Now, the James 4, chapter 8, excuse me, chapter 4, verse 8, this verse reminds us that God's closeness isn't a mystery. it's not, it's not how do I draw closer to God? A lot of folks, and you may struggle with this and maybe resonate with this as well too. A lot of folks just, wonder where God is in their life. Why isn't God giving me the things that I asked for? Why isn't God allowing me to flourish and live in abundance? And why is this person has something and I ain't got it? You dig? Um, But you have to allow God into the situation. You have to invite God into the space. You have to allow God to be working through you and working through the situations that you're going through. Again, the verse, it reminds us of God's goodness. It reminds us that the closeness isn't a okay, well, I need to go to church, or I need to tithe, or I need to, I need to do all these different things. It's more so, again, draw near to God. Now, things may draw you nearer to God, such as tithing, going to church, praying, meditating, and all those different things. It may draw you closer to God, but you also have to create that invitation. You have to do it with the intent of allowing God to go in, and not just going to church or tithing just as a routine or feeling obligated to do it. Like God, again, we talk about even tithing. I'm going to touch on that a bit. God doesn't like, somebody to give out of grudgingly or of necessity, for God does love a cheerful giver, so that can draw you closer to God when you have the right intent in the way in which God really wants you to do things, right? So again, this verse reminds us that his closeness isn't a mystery. It's more so draw near to God and God will draw near to you. Now, this is available for everyone. It's not limited to just a select few. It's not selected to just folks that go to church, or folks that are Christian, or folks that are Muslim, or it's not selected in a facet of like, okay, well, this tier of people are the people that God is the closest with, or there's these people do X, Y, and Z, quote unquote, what you can see as more on the God side than other people do. God doesn't God doesn't have the criteria of like, hey, you need to do X, Y, and Z for me to get closer to you. The first thing in this, again, John 4, chapter 8, or excuse me, John chapter 4, verse 8 says that you have to just, it doesn't say religion, it doesn't say tithe, it doesn't say any of that. It says invite him and he will come in. Invite God and God will call him. Draw near to God and he will draw near to you. Right. So thinking about this in reflection, thinking about this, think about your daily routine. I want you guys to think about your daily routine and where can you create moments to acknowledge God's presence? What can you do to create moments in which you acknowledge God's presence? Are you praying before one thing I do, me and my wife, and she actually put me on game to this, is like just praying, before we start driving, acknowledging God, not only just to like have a safe trip, but just allowing God to be in the space of being in the car, because we may not be able to control other people, run into us or anything like that. But we can, if we allow God in that space, we understand that God is really steering the wheel. God is in control. Um, what about when you first wake up? What is the first thing you do when you wake up? This is something I'm trying to get better with myself, because I've heard people say this before, and it's starting to ring true. Is like, usually the first thing that you do, if it's not involving God, is your God. Meaning, if you're waking up and you're going straight to work without giving God any praise or acknowledgement, your work has become your God. You know, and again, this can be done subconsciously. It's not that you hate God or anything like that, or you don't believe God exists, or you're not a believer. It's just you're not allowing God to be in the presence of your day. You wonder why you had a bad day. You dig? So everybody's schedule is different. Everybody does things differently. So, but what moments can you create for yourself to acknowledge God's presence? Because every step, even if it's a small step, is like starting your day. You know, Small steps, starting your day with prayer, reading a Bible verse, or simply thinking of him and blessing him, thanking God, having some gratitude, focus on the things that you have instead of what you don't have. Ask God for the things that you desire, but be thankful for what you have, right? Remember, God isn't too far. We often relate God as being somebody that, is in the heavens, or, things of that nature. But God walks with you all the time. God is always by your side. That is God's promise. Remember, God isn't too far. He is near and he's waiting for you to draw closer to him. God is closer than you think. God is not far from you. Your life circumstances and situations may seem as if God isn't in your presence or God isn't in your favor, but God is in your favor. You have to remember that you have to allow God to draw near to God and he'll draw near to you. He is not far away. He's always by your side. He has always been by your side. But you have to allow God in. You have to allow God. If you don't allow God in, then God cannot work through you. He cannot work through your issues. He can't work through your the things that you have going on. You have to allow God to come in. Again, James 4:8 says, draw closer to him, he'll draw closer to you. I appreciate y'all for tapping in for those who are viewing. I want to bring in this in prayer, so you guys can go about y'all day. All right. So if you guys bow your heads, pray with me, please. Lord, thank you for always being near. Just thank you for allowing us to be near. You pray that we continue to keep you first, keep you grounded in your word and your promises that you give to us. We want to remind ourselves, we want to remind ourselves always, always, always to keep you first and keep you at the foundation of everything that we do. We thank you and we love you. Amen. So this is going to be an action step for y'all. All right. So I want you guys to choose a time this week that will be strictly focused on God. And it could be in the morning, lunch, it could be in the evening, but have this moment for you just to dedicate to God. Give God some time in your day. All right. Appreciate y'all for tapping in. Make sure y'all share this if it resonated with you or if it resonated with somebody else that you feel like can be beneficial from it. I appreciate y'all for tapping in. Y'all take care. Peace.